there, Global Church family. Welcome to the ongoing conversation about international missions at Fellowship Bible Church, where you get a front row seat to hear what God is continually doing to establish His church around the world. My name is Emma Kate, and I'm your host for today. We are joined by Mike Thomas to talk about his recent trip to Ecuador. So welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be home.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, but how did the trip go? I heard you ended up getting sick.
Well, I mean, that was just a minor aspect to it. The trip went very well.
Okay.
So God used my downtime because I was sick to actually do a better job of accomplishing His purposes. So
okay.
That was good.
Yeah. That's a really important perspective to have. And so I said that you were in Ecuador, but we partner with a lot of different churches and people groups in Ecuador. We have a church in Cuenca that we partner with, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We partner with the Quechua people, but you actually didn't go and do any conference with those people. You were actually in Quito. Is that correct?
Yes, Quito is the capital of Ecuador. It's further north than Cuenca, and the Quechua Indians or Quechua folks are between the two, I guess you'd say.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we've been partnering with the church in Quito for years and years.
Okay.
But they don't speak English.
Okay.
So we don't have as much interaction with them per se.
Okay. Gotcha.
But, yeah.
And how did we, I'm testing you on the history of this, how did we come to connect with the church at Quito?
Yeah, so back in the day, and don't hold me to dates or anything, but when we were partnering with Wilson Campoverde, he had known and pastors, folks in Quito, and helped to start a church there, IGV, in Quito.
Okay.
And so since then, we've been engaged with that church for many, many years.
Okay. Gotcha. And so what was then the purpose of this specific trip?
Yeah, again, the Pastor Freddie had invited me to come down. I've been down, I think this was my 5th trip to visit with the church, and we've done seminars there. So he was asking that we come down and do a weekend seminar for the church again. Okay.
And did you go by yourself?
Almost. After prayerful consideration and such, I did not go with anyone from Fellowship Bible Church.
Okay.
But because our global church family is large, and we really do consider it as one family, there's a couple from the Donna Church in South Texas that had caught my eye, and Jim Poole and I had been down there in February. So I asked Emmanuel and Lily to go along with me for a number of reasons, but the 3 of us went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I'm assuming one is that they spoke Spanish and could communicate.
Well, it's really important that they would speak Spanish and English.
Yes.
So Emmanuel, he's mostly a Spanish speaker, and his wife Lily is very bilingual.
Okay.
So she actually did she did most of the translations. And my Spanish is good enough to get me in trouble. So.
Gotcha. Well, but that's, again, so cool that our global church family is such a family that you got to go with people from South Texas to Ecuador and have that experience. So that's awesome. So you said you were asked to come and teach this seminar. So what was the content of the seminar?
So the church in Quito has been teaching FBC material, missions material, for years.
Okay.
So they're very grounded in creation to Christ. They've been teaching through the Knowing God lessons and a number of the other materials as well. So I had talked to Freddie ahead of time and said, we are teaching this teaching called the meta-narrative, the grand picture, the big picture of redemption. And so I wanted to introduce that to them and to the church.
Okay.
So that's what we did Friday night and all day Saturday.
Gotcha. And so did you primarily teach, or did the couple from South Texas interpret for you, or what did that look like?
So the actual conference time Friday night and Saturdays, it's a smaller group than the church.
Okay.
I think there was 30 to 40 people during those times. And it was designed as kind of more of a discussion time.
Oh,
so there's
okay.
teaching, but also feedback, ask questions, interact. So in that regard, Emmanuel and Lily both participated in the discussion as well.
Okay.
But the instruction, was purposeful and was stepping through the 4 stages of the meta-narrative through those 2 days.
Gotcha. And I know I've been talking a lot with Scott and Jim about like their times in Africa because they've been presenting this to multiple countries, but a lot of the people that they're presenting it to, this is brand new information. They weren't brought up under grace teaching. That's not what their seminaries were. And so for a lot of them, it's been very freeing and eye-opening, but you're saying that the people in Quito, they're very grounded in grace and creation to Christ. So what was their response to the meta-narrative?
Very accepting.
Okay.
So there wasn't really any opposition or pushback to it at all. But it was, in their words, helpful to see that big picture, to put it all together, to see in a sense, the condensed version of God's plan. So it helped to answer a number of questions. It helped to bring peace, confidence that God is doing what He's purposed to do all along. I'd say that was probably the most prevalent reaction. Just that confidence in God and being able then to understand what's going on in the world.
Right. Yeah, and that kind of brings me then to culturally, where is Ecuador at? Because like we talk again about the African countries, some of them are heavy Muslim countries, some of them are Christian countries, but we know Nigeria, there's a lot of persecution there. What's it like to be a believer in Ecuador? Do they experience persecution?
Not so much like we do in Africa.
Okay.
But they are heavily Roman Catholic country.
Okay.
So they're coming from a Roman Catholic perspective, worldview that permeates the entire culture.
Okay.
And not just in Ecuador, but
right.
pretty much most of Latin America. There are some other influences, but mostly that's what the teaching is that we do is contrasted to, I guess you would say.
Gotcha. And I'm asking you a question. Sorry. But what does outreach look like to the Roman Catholics from that Quito church? Are they pretty set in their Catholicism, or their interest to explore something different?
Yeah, that's a good question, which means I'm not sure I have the answer to that.
That's okay.
But I mean, there is interest, but for a large part, I would say my perspective on it is that most people are pretty content within their Catholicism as being their heritage.
Okay.
What they're concerned about are more worldly concerns: immigration, illegal immigration, loss of jobs, economy, things that we all are concerned about.
Right. Gotcha. And so is there any follow-up that's going to happen from this conference, or was this kind of just a one-time thing? I mean, obviously we're still in relationship with them, and we will continue to partner with them, but are there any next steps that came out of this conference?
I would say that for their church, next steps are really continuing. It's not just a new next step, but a continuing steps of how to disciple the men and women in the church in these truths that then impacts their daily lives.
Gotcha.
And so they have meetings during the week, men's meetings, women's meetings. They have a vibrant youth ministry that both for high schoolers, but now many of those are now young adults still within the church. So there's a continuing desire to pass along these truths, make it real in the lives of their members, and mature the church. So that's a continuing next step. What we did focus on Monday, we met with the 3 elders and their wives, plus the pastor and Jody, to discuss relational discipleship.
Okay.
And that being a tool, a significant tool, in actually accomplishing that goal of passing these truths on to the people in the church, so that it becomes a part of their life and their world perspective. So,
Gotcha. Yeah. And that kind of then leads into my next question is how, as we as FBC, how can we be praying for our brothers and sisters in Quito? And I think you mentioned the discipleship, that they continue to grow in discipling these truths. But are there any other prayer requests that you saw from this trip that we could be praying for them?
yes, the overarching prayer request is that, like Paul prays for the different churches, that the eyes of their hearts would be enlightened to know their God in a deeper way, which is our prayer for any of these churches, but and ourselves as well. But it's a reality for the church in Quito that the truths of who God is and what He's doing and who we are in Him, the identity that we have in Christ, how that actually plays out in their day-to-day lives, in the working world, with their families, with their neighborhoods, all of it. So that's the big prayer request. Secondly, then even the value of the local church, and they do have they value the local church and their participation in it. I would say more so than other places that I'm familiar with. But it's still, there's still room to grow in that they would really see individually their own part to play within that local body.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And that I want us to hold on to that, and as we're praying for the Quito Church, but this month the focus of FBC Global Missions is the church in Cuenca, and the Delgados are the Juan is the pastor there, and Tirsa his wife. And so I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about the Cuenca Church and the Delgados as we head into this next month praying for them.
Yeah, I have visited Juan and Tirsa and been to Cuenca a number of times, but not recently. So I haven't been to, I know they're in a new location than when I was there last. So I've been a little bit more out of touch with the specific people in the church. But it's very similar in the sense of, the value of the local church. They also are very well grounded in grace truths and identification truths. I just haven't heard as recent stories from them as I have from Quito.
Gotcha.
So,
gotcha. Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for being here, updating us on your recent trip to Quito. And so I want you guys to know that if you're interested in learning more about the Cuenca trip, there is information in the mission stairwell. We have prayer requests. There are activities for the kids to do. So I encourage you guys all to check that out. And for all of our listeners and viewers, remember that we always love to hear from you. So send over your thoughts, questions, or requests, and you can do that at fbcva.org/podcast and write us your notes and comments. And thank you all so much for watching and listening. And remember that it is Christ who is continually building His church until we all attain to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God.